Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to 2 Minutes to Review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
The album review show, longest album review in under 2 minutes wins our little game here, if that happens, but we try. we try.
We try so hard.
We promised album reviews, and that's what we do. The album
And
reviews.
we promised that we would try to get it in under 2 minutes. Doesn't mean we succeed.
This is quite an interesting one for us. I mean, I liked Jack White for a long time. Sometimes he's very good, sometimes kind of bored. But I'm very interested to see Zach's take on this because we are reviewing the brand new one from Jack White called Fear of the Dawn.
And actually, to add a little more clarity, it's the first album of his in 2022. That's right. Jack White is releasing 2 solo albums just to further prove how eccentric of a performer he is, because of course, he's got a ton of bands that he's in. We've reviewed the Raconteurs last album on the show before. Of course, there's the White Stripes and the Dead Weather. And this year, he's proving both his harder edge style and his softer edge style. The album that we're reviewing today is Fear of the Dawn. But then in July, he is releasing a more mellower, acoustic-y kind of album, Entering Heaven Alive. He really is an interesting musician. You can see how people get rubbed the wrong way by him. But there's no denying the impact he's made in modern rock music, both from even just from a musical standpoint. I mean, no one sounds like him, both from his voice and guitar playing, but then also even just what he's done for the vinyl industry through his Third Man Records label. How he's really kind of helped make vinyl feel important again. I mean, you saw, if you watch our videos on our YouTube channel, you've seen Matt show off his copy of Lazaretto with all the cool little intricates and details in it. If you haven't, go to our YouTube channel and check out that episode of What's Spitting. But he's just a fascinating figure. So we were eager to listen to Fear of the Dawn, and we're excited to give our 2 cents about it and see if maybe one of us can succeed at giving a review in under 2 minutes. As you can tell, probably not. But first, a special shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Yeah, we've been partnered with these guys for a long time. And if you haven't been with us for very many podcasts, well, you're going to learn about a really awesome beard product. Me, I've got this luscious goatee going on, and Zach has one as well. And
Thanks.
From time to time, it kind of gets a little bit rough. And I'm sure if every guy has had that where, your beard just isn't feeling up to snuff. So what do you do about it? Well, normally you would take a shower and then, a few hours later, it just gets rough again. But the guys over at Lucky 13, well, they've decided you deserve better in your life. So we've partnered with them and we've put together our own beard oil. And let me say that I've smelled a lot of beard oils and I've tried a lot of this stuff. Most of them they leave something to be desired, whether it's the way they feel, the way they smell. Lucky 13 really has kind of hit the nail on the head with this. So we partnered with them and put together our own beard oil in tribute to the one and only Lemmy from Motorhead. And what does Lemmy smell like? Well, he smells like the things that he represents: whiskey, tobacco, leather, and cola. And it is one of the best smelling beard oils I've ever smelled, hands down. And it's not just because it's ours. It's just that good. If maybe that is not, your style, maybe it's something else, something more simple. One of my all-time favorites that they've put together, Tobacco Vanilla. I would recommend to give that a shot. And with baseball just starting, he's got one called Opening Day. And that is very much so reminiscent of fresh cut grass, wood, leather, and bubblegum. So there's something really for everybody with Lucky 13. Give it a shot, and we're giving you 10% off of your order. So head on over to Lucky13, beardco.com. Go to the product page, throw anything in your cart that you want, including the Lemmy. Use the code EFP10 at checkout. Get 10% off your order. I guarantee you're going to love the way you look. You're going to love the way you feel. And we're going to make you smell epic. Lucky13, beardco.com.
Even though Jack White doesn't have a beard, I already know he would love the baseball beard oil that they produce because he's a huge baseball fan. In fact, he's performing the national anthem at the opening game for the Detroit Tigers. So
That's
I don't
cool.
know, Jack, after you listen to our review, because obviously you care about our review of your album, let us know if you want us to hit you up with a complimentary bottle on us. But I
will definitely buy Jack White a bottle of the Opening Day if he comments.
There you go. It's on you now, Jack. I never thought I'd be challenging Jack White to comment for a free bottle of beard oil, but that's
There's a lot of things on this podcast that we do that you don't think you'd ever do.
That's very true. Don't believe us? Go to our channels. Anyway, Matt, I'm going to go first. I'm not even going to
shocker.
This. Yeah, I know. I am. I'm a jerk. I know. Count me down, damn it.
3, 2, 1, go.
So while this may be the most White Stripes-esque sounding release that Jack White has done in a long time, I also feel like the Fear of the Dawn sounds more like a soundtrack to an artsy international heist film than it does an actual album. And not necessarily a compliment either, because there's some really cool songs on there. I mean, definitely if you were looking for a guitar heavy high energy songs like Taking Me Back, The White Rave, and the title track. I mean, anyone who's been dying for a guitar heavy album from Jack White, you'll love those songs. But it also sometimes feels a little bit exhausting to hear them, as if I'm waiting to see where they're going, and it's just a little bit like, oh, I hate to say, I sound old saying this, but a little bit like too much at the once without actually even going anywhere. I mean, songs like Into the Twilight, it just gets really repetitive really fast and makes you go, where are we going here? Like, what's the focus, or what's the goal and the end goal here? And I mean, it's just kind of, it almost makes me wish that, granted, I haven't heard that many songs off of the more mellow album, but it kind of makes me wish that he combined what he does there and here so that I can have at least a little bit of a time to breathe in between the songs. But with that said, there's some really cool moments like Heidi Ho, which is definitely a little bit more of an unusual song that incorporates more of his hip hop influence, not just because Q-Tip is on it. But then it's funny because then literally the last two songs, Morning, Noon, and Night, and then Shedding My Velvet, those are surprisingly the ones that stand out to me, the ones that really find him incorporating more intricacy and thought into it instead of just the riffs that are kind of copied and pasted together. So what I'm trying to say is it's not a bad album. And if you're looking for Jack White delivering an in-your-face rock album after many years of just kind of experimenting, you'll probably really, really gravitate toward this.
And we got a time. Star rating out of 5.
I'm going with, out of 5 stars, 3.5. Because there's definitely some fun moments here, and there's definitely moments where he shows how great of a guitar player he is out. And even as I mentioned, those last 2 songs on the album, it's like, oh yeah, no, Jack White really is a really good songwriter. But there's a lot of times I was listening to it and I couldn't help but think, is he just pandering to fans who think they know what Seven Nation Army sounds like, or they think they know what White Stripes sound like, but didn't really listen to the band, if you know what I mean? Like, fans who just assume that Jack White is just a full-fledged loud guitarist. But if, those same fans who, if they actually listen to the Raconteurs or they listen to the deep cuts of the White Stripes, they'd realize, no, there's more to Jack White than just a guitar player. I just couldn't help but feel like this album, it didn't feel like he was trying to express himself. It felt like he was like, you know what? I'm going to write these songs because this type of audience is going to get into it, or will gravitate to it, and then I'll just play all the hits of my bands and of my solo stuff on the road. Like, it just, I don't want to say it feels like filler, because there is some interesting moments, and there's definitely some experimental elements to it too. It's just something about it doesn't feel authentic. And I'm not trying to make it sound as negative as it probably sounds, but I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't see myself gravitating to it the same way I do some of his other work, especially the Raconteurs. I would say if you want a better example of Jack White as a songwriter, as a musician, go to the Raconteurs' Help a Stranger, which is the album that we reviewed, I can't believe it, almost 3 years ago at this point.
Damn, we've been doing this a while.
We have been. But yeah, I would say if you're looking just for some cool Jack White guitar riffs, you'll enjoy this album. If you're looking for some actual good songs from Jack White, check out the Raconteurs instead. But I digress. Matthew,
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you sure there's no Seven Nation Army holding you back?
Just get behind me, Satan. Let's do it.
Oh, good comeback. But can you give me credit on my pun? Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go.
I go back and forth on Jack White a lot. And on this particular album, I actually really enjoy what he's done. I kind of attribute this album from Jack White kind of something similar to what Devin Townsend did on Empath. It's like if you cracked his head open and you emptied out his musical brain, this is what would fall out of his head. Now, is the music any good? To me, the answer, hands down, is yes. There's a lot of stuff on here that I think he's paying tribute to, like taking me back. The first 15 or 20 seconds of this, I thought I was listening to Queen. And all of the guitar overdubs work really well on this song, and it doesn't seem forced in any way, shape, or form. Like Jack White really seems comfortable in playing, this highly electronic style of music, be it very guitar driven, it's still very electric, and it's very awesome to hear him get back into this style of music. Fear of the Dawn really reminds me of like Children of the Grave type Sabbath. The White Raven, it's honestly the White Stripe song that I've been waiting for a very long time. And I'm glad that he's kind of played around with this a little bit and even played like tribute to the White Stripes in Heidi Ho, with him playing around with a Seven Nation Army type vibe and then turning it into a hip hop track. It actually feels really good. And then I think I'm going to say this right, Esophobia. I'm sorry if I said it wrong, but I really think that Jack kind of expands himself on here, doing a little bit more proggy work on here, and then coming back with a reprise later in the album. I honestly think if I had to sum up this album, I think that this is Jack White having a lot of fun and sounding really good doing it.
Wow, so a lot of high praise I'm hearing. Star rating out of 5 stars. What would you give it?
4.5.
Wow, so could this be a album of the year contender for you then?
Could be. Honestly, this is something I wasn't expecting from Jack White. When we got the copy of the album and sat down, I'm like, all right, how is this going to go? Is this going to be the Jack White that's like he's going to try to do some 1920s thing melded with electronic? And no, not even close. Is this Jack White going to feel like he's forcing something? Not even close. Is this going to be Jack White being the musician that we know that he can be? Yes. And I'm really happy that he's put out another album that I honestly think that I can enjoy time and time and time again, because a lot of his White Stripe stuff I'll still go back to. A lot of his Raconteurs stuff I'll go back to. There's some solo stuff in the middle. I'm like, I'm not crazy about it. And I was just kind of hoping that he delivered, and he delivered in a major way, in my opinion, on this one.
I will say 2 things after hearing you talk. First, this is definitely the most rocking album he's done since, I would even dare I say, like early White Stripes. Like there's definitely a level of heaviness here, or just like garage rocky sound that you haven't heard from him in a long time. And I love the Raconteurs too, but they take more from the Beatles than they do from the Who. I think is a good way to say that. And that kind of goes back to my point where if you were always looking for a guitar heavy Jack White album, then you will enjoy this for sure. And you're talking about how some of the songs always feel like tributes to some of his influences. The song That Was Then, This Is Now, he does some tasty guitar. And actually, that's a song that stood out too, other than the 2 I mentioned before. He does some really tasty guitar licks in there that kind of gave me a Van Halen vibe. And I couldn't help but think / wonder if maybe that was him going, all right, so this one I'm going to give a little shout out to Eddie Van Halen. Because actually, I don't know if you remember, he ended up being a last minute replacement guest on SNL, Saturday Night Live, in October 2021. October 2020. And it was right after Eddie Van Halen passed away. And he paid tribute to him by playing the blue Wolfgang guitar that Eddie gifted him with and helped him, just modify. And he did like his own little solo. He said, I'm not even going to try to do a Eddie Van Halen guitar solo. I'm not that good. But it was still kind of a cool little nod and a little nice way to recognize that Eddie Van Halen wasn't just an amazing guitarist, but also a great guitarist mind, and of how he actually approached creating the instruments. So when I heard that song, I'm like, that's a tasty little Van Halen riff right there. That's kind of cool.
I don't foresee him, straying away from something like that. I definitely think that he could have full on went into this saying, you know what, I'm going to do some sort of tribute to X, Y, and Z, or at least play around with it. Like I said, I put the album on and it sounded like I was listening to Queen. And then it sounded like I was listening to Sabbath. So yeah, later on in the album, if he decided I'm going to do something Van Halen-ish, that wouldn't surprise me.
I guess where my comment about like it kind of was exhausting to listen to. I know that normally is under a negative context, but I think for me it was more so like just riff after riff. I kind of was. I'm not used to hearing riff after riff from Jack White, even on his heavier stuff or early stuff. There really always was a mixture of some mellow and some acoustically numbers. By the time I got halfway through the record, I'm like, oh my God, he's just freaking wailing away. And on the one hand, that's exhausting, but that's also pretty condemnable because here's an artist who continues to do different types of genres. And to hear him, I mean, because I will say he sounds great on the album. He doesn't sound like
the whole album sounds great.
I still question whether or not his intentions of making this album, in that, is he just realizing, you know what, let me make an album that will please everyone who keeps asking for Seven Nation Army, as opposed to wanting to make this album. But the album proves that he still can freaking play the guitar, that he really is a standout guitarist, both in his just capabilities of playing, but also even just the tones he gets out of the instruments. I mean, I think Heidi Ho is just a great song. And I think it really captures how he's able to meld different genres without losing what he said, like without losing his signature sound.
And there's something, that I picked up on, and I forget what song goes on, and I wish I wrote it down. But in the middle, I should have. In one of the songs in the middle, it was him playing the guitar, but what he was playing through, and I really hope that this is the case, because if anybody who's a guitar nerd has ever heard of the Korg Miku pedal, it is something to behold what this thing does. For anybody who doesn't know what this is, and I'm sure it's a lot of people, but it is melded on a Japanese live performing, like a real music act, anime thing on stage, and this Miku person sings. And when you plug your guitar into this pedal, it sings just like this anime person. If you're curious,
Phobia?
Maybe, I don't remember.
I will say also, I feel like that song didn't need to come back. There was some interesting elements to it, but at that point I was even like, all right, where are we going here? Where, like, there's just too many moments that I'm like, all right, the first 30 seconds sound cool, but yeah, we're going on the 2-minute mark here. Where are we going? And that's where I was kind of losing focus. And the only time I really was captivated from start to finish was the song Morning, Noon, and Night, where I just thought like I felt like the band, like both him and the musicians that he had involved here, were really like locked in together. Whereas everything else, it just kind of felt like everything was like copied and pasted to me. Not in the most terrible way either, but it didn't feel as organic as some of Jack White's other pieces of work. I think that's the way to say it. To me, it didn't feel as organic as his other stuff, as good as it was.
And I don't think it's meant to feel organic at all. I think this is meant to be just in your face. It's meant to be electronic to almost an extreme. Like, the only time on this album that I feel there is any sort of backing down off of that, it's on the last track, Shedding My Velvet, which feels like you're stepping into like a 50s or a 60s lounge. And it's got a really great vibe through the first half of the song. And I honestly wish he would kept more of the vibe in finishing the song, but it was a really cool track to hear him go from something like that Miku pedal that I was just talking about into something that feels like a 50s or a 60s lounge. It says a lot that you can fit both of those things onto one album and make it feel good. So I think that there's a lot here to explore, and there's a lot here that I'm curious to see what he does going on into the next album. If he's going to be more stripped back for stripped back's sake, because he went so heavy on this one, on the electronic elements, or if he's going to try to take some of this and maybe meld it into that acoustic sound that he's known for.
It's funny you say that because I was about to say, regardless, this album does have me intrigued to hear Entering Heaven Alive, which I think says a lot because as exhausting as some of the album was to listen to, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm still on the Jack White boat here. I'm ready to hear some more. It'll be interesting to hear both albums back to back too, to see how, if they're really that drastically different that they need to live in different spheres, or could this be part of one large story combined together? It'll be interesting for sure. Before we kind of wrap things up, do you think that this album is both a good introduction to the new Jack White fans, and do you think this album could win over naysayers?
Naysayers, yes. New fans, no. And I'll tell you why.
Interesting, because I was going to say the exact opposite, but you go first.
It's going to win over the naysayers because this is going to finally give them what they want. If you've been wanting White Stripes era Jack White, you're going to get something very, very close to it. It's not going to win over new fans because if this is what you're expecting from Jack White going into every album that you may not have heard from him, you are going to be very, very mistaken that Jack White sounds like this all the time.
And you see, I feel like this album plays into a lot of what some of the more harsher critics have of Jack White, and plays into what they believe in about him, and just oh, he's kind of just too bizarre. He's too all over the place. He's just too of the same kind of riffs and repetitiveness. Whereas I could see the average fan who isn't really that well read up on Jack White's catalog going, yeah, like Seven Nation Army. And then they listen to this like, yeah, that's what I like. Cool. I'm going to like, and then they just kind of become a Jack White fan, and then maybe go down the rabbit hole of just discovering his other bands and other projects and kind of drinking the Kool-Aid from there. So it's interesting. We have different reactions to that.
Yeah, I mean, the moment that you start going down that rabbit hole and you try to find something else, like, yeah, I like Seven Nation Army. Yeah, I like Heidi Ho, because it sounds like Seven Nation Army, and then maybe one or two other songs sounds cool, and then, okay, let's go check out this other one.
See, I don't hear the Seven Nation Army influence in Heidi Ho. I hear Jack White guitar riffs, but I don't really hear this out of all the comparisons.
He flirts with it so heavily, and he never commits to it. It's like a one night stand with Seven Nation Army.
Yeah, I still don't hear it. But you know what, though, Matt? You know what the truth is? None of our opinions really matter. What really matters is if either of us actually succeeded at giving a review in under 2 minutes. So, Matt, how do I do?
Well, you came in still over 2 minutes.
Still over 2 minutes?
2 minutes, 8 seconds.
Oh, the hardest button to button. Well, Matt, then you will be so pleased with yourself.
Yeah.
That all that little extra rehearsals you did before going into this paid off, because you came in at 1 minute and 51 seconds. Congratulations, you jerk.
Hey, I told you, I'm good at this game.
You
You just don't like that I win this all the time. That's okay.
I actually kind of sound like a Jack White song right there. One of his guitar solos. I'm standing by that comment. But you know what? Let us know what you think of Fear of the Dawn. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think Jack White once again proves that he is a god? Or do you think he proves once again how disappointing he is or how overrated he is? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more podcasts like this, as well as check out some pretty cool videos, including one where Matt shows off his vinyl copy of Lazaretto. Don't want to miss that. Thank you once again to our sponsors, Lucky 13 Beard Co. Go to lucky13beardco.com. Use that code EFB10 to get 10% off of some amazing smelling beard oils, including our very own Lemmy-inspired beard oil, the Lemmy. Good name, I know. And also, thank you to Rootless Coffee out of Flint, Michigan. They are brewing some delicious blends of coffee that really break free from boredom. And they work with some cool artists, everyone from wrestlers to podcast hosts to bands, to create their own blends of coffee. Go to rootlesscoffee.com, use the code EPICROAST, all caps, and get 15% off of your order of their original blends. You can't beat that. Thank you all so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
See ya.